My name is Harold Finch, and I was 66 years old the morning my son called to tell me he was selling the house. I was in the Mordecai kitchen when it happened. 8:43 on a Tuesday, the east light coming through the window at its low March angle. The coffee mug was still warm in my hands. In the back bedroom, there was a filing cabinet, bottom drawer, a manila folder labeled in my own handwriting. It had been there for 7 years. What Cassandra had never thought to check was whether my name was still on the paperwork. Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge, where quiet choices make the loudest statements. If you've ever built something quietly while others claimed it, this story is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. My name is Harold Finch. I am 66 years old, and I have lived on Elm Avenue in Raleigh's Mordecai neighborhood for 31 years, in the same house I bought the year Derek was born, and that I have maintained with my own hands every season since. The porch needs repainting every 4 years. The gutters need clearing in November. The wiring in the back addition I ran myself in 1998 and have not had to touch since, which is a standard I hold all electrical work to, invisible when done correctly, noticed only when it fails. I worked 34 years as a union electrician in Raleigh, starting as a journeyman in 1985 and earning my master's license in 1991. Commercial work mostly, office buildings, municipal contracts, a section of the university expansion in 2004 that I am still proud of because the conduit runs are cleaner than anything I have seen built since. I retired at 62 with a pension that covered the house and the truck, and a modest savings account I have been adding to since Joan and I were first married. Joan passed 7 years ago. Heart failure. She had a cardiologist she liked, a Dr. Pamela Norris at Rex Hospital on Blue Ridge Road, and I drove her to the appointments every other Thursday for 3 years before the end, leaving job sites at 2:30 in the afternoon and returning before the crew arrived the next morning, never mentioning the schedule adjustment to my foreman, because it was not his business and because the work got done regardless. After she passed, I organized her estate myself across 6 weeks in the spring. The accounts, the personal property, the paperwork, without asking Derek or Cassandra to manage any of it. I did not want them to have to carry it. I told myself that was a kindness. I still believe it was. Derek was 30 when he and Cassandra decided they were ready to buy a house. He called me in August, 7 years back, and explained the situation in the careful way he had when he needed something he was not certain I would agree to. He said the bank had run the numbers. He said Cassandra's student loan balance had pushed their debt-to-income ratio 4 points above the qualification threshold. He said they had found a house on Sycamore Glen Drive in the Brentwood area, and that it was the right house and the right time, and that the only thing standing between them and the approval was a co-borrower on the loan. My grip on the coffee mug tightened once. I told him I would call the loan officer the next morning. The loan was $214,000. I paid the down payment, $31,400, out of my savings account and wired it to the title company the morning of the closing, September 14th. I signed the deed of trust as co-borrower alongside Derek. The loan officer, a man named Keith Sutton at First Federal Mortgage on Hillsborough Street, explained the co-borrower terms in the flat professional tone of a man who had read the same paragraph several thousand times. He said I was equally obligated on the note. He said my credit and financial standing were as tied to the property as Derek's. He said it would remain that way until the loan was satisfied or refinanced with my written consent to release. I said I understood. I signed where indicated. I filed my copy of the complete mortgage package, the deed of trust, the note, the HUD-1 settlement statement, in the manila folder in the filing cabinet in the back bedroom when I got home that evening, and I did not mention it again. In the year that followed the closing, I drove to the Sycamore Glen house 3 times to help with repairs Derek did not have the tools or experience to handle. The water heater replacement in February, a sub-panel that needed rebalancing in May, a section of the back fence that came down in a July storm. I never sent an invoice. The first year's property tax escrow had been underfunded at closing by $3,847, and I covered it without being asked when the statement arrived in January. I paid for Derek's HVAC certification course in 2009, $2,200, the year the recession cut his contracting work in half, and the certification was the bridge between that year and the next. Something in his jaw went tight when he thought about that course now. He had taken on a Tuesday and Thursday schedule and completed it in 6 weeks and gotten work again by February. He had not mentioned it to Cassandra. As far as Harold knew, it had not come up. The Tuesday in March when Derek called, his voice had the careful quality it always carried when delivering something Cassandra had worked out in advance. He said they had decided to sell the Sycamore Glen house. He said they had an offer. He said the number was good. He said, "We just need you to sign the release paperwork, Dad. The realtor says it's standard. It's already done." Something along my spine went still. I said nothing. I set the mug on the counter. I asked him to give me 24 hours to look at the documents. He said there was a timeline. He said the buyers had a deadline. He said the realtor was waiting. He said, "Dad, this doesn't need to be complicated. We're just asking you to sign." I didn't answer. The back porch of the Elm Avenue house faces west and gets the afternoon light between 3 and 5. The azalea Joan had planted along the back fence was already coming in for spring. I stood on that porch for a while after Derek hung up and looked at the yard and thought about the folder in the filing cabinet and about Keith Sutton's flat professional voice reading the co-borrower terms at the table in 2016 and about the $31,400 that had left my savings account the morning of September 14th. The back of my neck went cold, not from anger, from the particular clarity that comes when you understand what is actually being asked of you. Derek called back that evening at 6:14. He said Cassandra felt that Harold being so involved in the financial side of their lives was not healthy for anyone long-term. He said they thought it was time for Harold to let them handle their own situation. He said the way Cassandra's positions always arrived. In Derek's voice, in Derek's sentence structure, missing only her name. My face went still. I kept my tone even. I told him I would look at the documents. He sent a text at 7:43. It said, "The realtor needs an answer by Friday. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I put the phone face down on the table. 34 years of union work. 47 licenses and permits filed without a single rejection. 3 repairs on a house I had no obligation to touch. $3,100 a month covered in property taxes the year the escrow came up short. Joan's entire estate organized without a request for help. The $31,400 that had made September 14th possible. Cassandra thought it was time for Harold to step back from the financial side of things. My shoulders pulled in once. Just once. I went to the filing cabinet at 9:31 the next morning. The manila folder was exactly where I had left it. I took it to the kitchen table and opened it. The deed of trust was on top, the original, with a notary stamp from September 14th, Harold Allen Finch listed as co-borrower on page 1, and on page 14, and on the signature block at the end. I read the co-borrower terms again. They were the same as Keith Sutton had read them 7 years earlier, in the same flat sequence. My hands went flat on the folder. I called Martin Ashby at 10:14 a.m. Martin was a real estate attorney with union affiliation who had handled 2 prior property matters for me during my working years, an easement dispute in 2007 and a permit challenge in 2012. He answered on the second ring. I told him the situation. He asked me to read him the relevant language from the deed of trust. I read it. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "Harold, they cannot close this sale without your written consent. The title company will require a co-borrower release or a refinance that removes you from a note before they can issue clear title." He said it in the even tone of a man confirming something that was already true rather than deciding something new. I asked him what I needed to do. He said, "Keep the original document, call the title company directly, and do not sign anything without his review." I thanked him. I called the Wake County Register of Deeds at 9:07 that morning, before the Ashby call. In fact, because I want to confirm the public record before I spoke to anyone. Gerald Yount, a clerk in the deeds office, pulled the record in 4 minutes. He confirmed Harold Allen Finch was listed as co-borrower on the deed of trust for the Sycamore Glen Drive property. He said the record had not been amended. I thanked him. In the weeks following, the sale proceeded. Derek and Cassandra's realtor found buyers. The price was agreed. The closing date was set for October 3rd. What no one on their side had confirmed. because no one had thought to check was whether the title could transfer without the co-borrower's release. The title company called Harold's cell phone at 2:08 p.m. on a Wednesday in late September. The caller identified herself as Donna Reyes, a title officer at Raleigh County Title Services on Oberlin Road. She said she was reviewing the Sycamore Glen file and had found a discrepancy in the co-borrower structure. She said the deed of trust showed a second borrower whose consent had not been obtained. She said the transaction could not close in its current form. My breathing slowed. I told her I was the co-borrower. She paused. I told her I was aware of the situation and that I had a copy of the original mortgage package. I asked when I could come in. She said October 3rd at 9 in the morning. I let that settle. Derek called that evening at 7:22. His voice had lost a careful quality. It was quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that is not peace but the absence of a prepared position. He said, "Dad, were you always on a mortgage?" I said yes. He said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I said there had never been a reason to. He was silent for a long time. I paused. Then I told him I would be at the title company on October 3rd, and that we could talk about what came next after that meeting. He said okay. He said it very quietly. I arrived at Raleigh County Title Services on Oberlin Road at 9 a.m. on October 3rd. Donna Reyes was a precise woman with short gray hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain. She had the mortgage package on the desk. When I sat down, she confirmed the co-borrower standing at 9:22 a.m., Harold Allen Finch, listed on the original deed of trust filed September 14th, still of record at Wake County. Consent required for title transfer. Derek and Cassandra were not present. Their realtor was present. She was a young woman who had not been in the room for the original closing and who was learning, in real time, that a transaction she had believed was complete had a structural element no one had verified. I kept my tone even. I told Donna Reyes that I would prepare to sign the co-borrower release under one condition, that Derek and I speak directly, without the realtor in the room, before I put pen to paper. I said it was a family matter and that it would take 20 minutes. My chest did something it had not done in years. Not triumph, a compression. The feeling of something that had been open for 7 years finally arriving at the room it had been built for. The realtor stepped outside. Derek sat across from me at the table. Cassandra was not present. I did not ask about her. I set the manila folder on the table. I did not speak immediately. I let the room be quiet for a moment. I looked at my son, 37 years old, his mother's forehead, my father's jaw, and I waited for him to be ready. Then I said that I had signed the original mortgage because I believed he and Cassandra needed a foundation, and I had been in a position to provide one. I said I had paid the down payment and covered the first year's tax gap and made the repairs and paid for the certification course because those things had needed doing, and I was the one who could do them. I said I had kept the paperwork because that was what I did with every document I had ever signed. I said I had not mentioned the cosign for 7 years because it had not needed mentioning. I said I was going to sign the release. I said I wanted him to know what he was releasing. Something in him went flat then, a settling in the face, a dropping of something he'd been carrying in the muscles around his eyes. I signed the co-borrower release at 9:41 a.m. Donna Reyes notarized it. The transaction proceeded. The mortgage was satisfied at closing on November 8th, and the record was updated at Wake County accordingly. Harold Finch, 66 years old, and his name was on it until the day he decided it didn't need to be. The sale closed for $341,000. Derek called me 2 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon. He did not mention October 3rd directly. He asked about the Elm Avenue house, whether the porch was due for repainting. I said it was. He said he could come up the following Saturday and help. I said I would have the supplies. He came. We painted the porch in 1 day. We did not discuss the mortgage or Cassandra or the title company or the folder in the filing cabinet. We talked about the work, the prep, the brush direction, the second coat timing. We talked the way men talk when they're doing a job together, and the job is a thing between them and every other conversation they are not ready to have yet. A signature is a quiet thing. It does nothing until the moment it does everything. A $214,000 note. A manila folder in a back bedroom. and a son who finally came back to help paint the porch. Harold Finch, 66 years old. His name on the paperwork, right up until it wasn't. If you were sitting across that table on October 3rd, when Harold set the manila folder down and let the room go quiet, if you've ever signed something for someone who forgot you had, leave a comment and tell me what you would have said before you signed the release. And if this story found you today, hit the like button and subscribe to Dad's True Revenge. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of this fear.